Hi, this is Emily, and I'm going to talk about Shakespeare's King Richard III, not the historical Richard, but the one of the last history play. And what I want you to pay attention to if you're going to a performance, watching a performance, is how Shakespeare is going to manipulate the audience from being with Richard as a villain, as Vice from the medieval morality plays, who's the guy who says, hey, I'm going to do all this stuff. And we delight in the clever ways that he leads sinners into sin. And taking from there to someone who is pathetic and we're glad to be rid of, which is probably a good thing because Elizabeth I, the one Shakespeare was writing for, her grandfather was the one who defeated Richard III. And the way Shakespeare does this is through soliloquy. So he starts off the play with this wonderful soliloquy of, now is the winter of our discontent, made glorious summer by the sons of York. It's very sarcastic. And in this soliloquy, which is a monologue spoken to the audience, or basically it's a character alone on the stage speaking. In the soliloquy, Richard talks to us directly, tells us, hey, you know what? I'm a hunchback. I've been bullied. I've been treated badly. I don't really care about my brother's victories. In fact, you know what? I'm going to spoil it. I'm going to make it miserable for them. In fact, he says in his second soliloquy, I'm going to off my brother, Clarence. And we, as an audience, are with him. We're like, oh, he's a villain. He's a bad guy, and he says he's going to be a villain, and we're with him all the way. And so when in Act 1, Scene 2, he does what he says he's going to do. He is going to woo Anne, who's the widow of the man he killed in battle, Edward. When he succeeds at it, we're as surprised as he is. And he says in his third soliloquy, was ever woman in this humor wooed? Was ever woman in this humor won? I'll have her, but I'll not keep her long. So he's still scheming, but he says, I don't get it. Edward was a good guy. Why would she be with me? And we say, we don't know, but we're with you. Wow, that's amazing. Good for you, Richard. Let's keep going. Because we're in Act 1. And Act 1 is the rising action. Rising action is Acts 1, 2, and 3 until we get to the climax, which in Shakespeare is usually the last scene of Act 3. And sure enough, the last scene of Act 3 is where Richard has his henchmen get him crowned king in basically a media coup. There's a crowd of people going, we don't care. And Richard said, oh no, I don't want to be king. I don't want to be king. And Buckingham says, come on, you want to be king? And finally they're like, okay, be king. And he says, oh, you want me to be king? Oh, well, all right then. And we as an audience think it's hilarious. You can't help but enjoy this, even if we're not crazy about his means and methods. But then we get to Act 4. And this is where the problems start. This is a falling action, remember? And this is where Shakespeare starts to draw us away from Richard, because what does Richard do? He has two children, the princes in the tower, murdered. And we say, ooh, we can't go with that. And when Buckingham's henchman says, ooh, I can't go along with you anymore, and then he gets bumped off, we say, ooh, Richard, we don't want anything to do with you anymore. So that when the next soliloquy happens, which is in Act 4, Scene 3, starting in line 36, and Richard is saying, okay, I'm going to go and marry Elizabeth's daughter. Now, Elizabeth was the mother of the two princes, among other people who have been murdered, right? And we as an audience say, ooh, we're supposed to, Richard wants us. He wants to say, okay, come on, guys, we're going to do this. And we say, oh, can't do it anymore. In fact, you know what? I think we're going to go with the other side now. And that's what happens. Because by the time you get to his last soliloquy, he has all the ghosts cursing him. The ghosts of the people he's killed. And he's killed a whole lot of people in this play. And what we find is Richard's not talking to us anymore. He's talking to himself. He says, Richard loves Richard, that is, I am I. Since there's none else by, we're not even there anymore. He recognizes, I am a villain, but it's not the, I'm a villain, it's, I'm a villain. I am awful. And yet no one's going to pity me, and you know what? I don't pity myself. And it's very sad. But we are like, oh well, yeah, that's right. You're a bad dude and we don't want anything to do with you. So that when in his last scene, Act 5, Scene 4, he comes with that very famous and very pathetic line, a horse, my kingdom for a horse. That he's willing to give up everything that he's murdered for, just for a horse. He's completely alone, and he doesn't even have us to be with him and to side with him. In fact, after he's killed, and when Elizabeth I's grandfather comes to the throne, Richmond, we're more likely to join in with him when he says, peace lives again, that she may long live here. God say amen. And we as an audience say, Richard, we're done. Amen. Be gone. And that's how Shakespeare has manipulated us and led us along. And I hope that any performance you see does a good job of this. I'd love to hear feedback, not only on this video, but what the performance was like that you watched, and anything else that you have to say about old King Richard III. There will be more videos, so please subscribe. Thank you for watching.